good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. If it's really, really early morning, like kind of like 001, let's say it's a good morning. And also maybe you should go to sleep. But first of all, watch this amazing story with us and this fantastic cast of players. My name is Ella Watts. My pronouns are she, her. I am a little out of it today, I'm not going to lie. I am very disabled, and my brain is not entirely cooperating. So I hope you'll bear with me if I occasionally seem a little incoherent. Luckily for me, I have a wonderful cast of people here to support me because that's really what we generally need in life is people supporting disabled people in our communities. Just because sometimes we're a little lower energy doesn't mean that we're not worth having at the table. Okay, so today we are going to be playing a post-apocalyptic game called Legacy: Life Among the Ruins. It's really cool. It's an RPG written by Minerva McJanda, and it's about playing like factions of different families or organizations across the decades and centuries following the apocalypse as they attempt to survive and potentially rebuild the world. Just as a heads up, Mina previously published this under a different name, so if you find a book called Legacy: Life Among the Ruins with art that looks like this, it is the right book. The copy has the wrong name on it, but the PDF has the right name on it, and you can buy it from her itch store. It's great. You should do that. Support indie game designers. Okay, we've had one session of this game already. Sadly, we had to skip our session last week due to unforeseen circumstances, but we're back in it now, and we're going to see kind of what we've inherited from the apocalypse. In our first session, we had this kind of like whirlwind heist where we met each of our players and their characters, essentially civilians who would intentionally or otherwise go on to essentially form these massive politically and socially and culturally powerful factions within the world of the apocalypse. Now, each of my players is going to tell you a bit more about their factions shortly, so refresh your memory and mine. But first of all, they are going to introduce themselves to you. So I would love it, players, if each of you could please give us your name and your pronouns, your character's name and their pronouns, and the name of the faction that you're running. We got that? Your name and your pronouns, your character's name and their pronouns, the name of the faction you're running. We're going to start with Aaliyah, please.
Hello, all. I'm Aaliyah Hudson. I go by Aaliyah the Sorceress out in the world. I use she, her pronouns, and I will be playing Fib today, a seeker of the Librarian Order who is a technologically advanced and cloned species. So they go with they, them pronouns.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, next up, Moz.
I totally was ready and not taking a sip of water. Hi, I'm Megan, or Megan Wright, known as Moz on the interwebs, or it's Mozzarella. I will be, my pronouns are she, they. I will be playing Marina Echo Wesper, or Echo. One of the leaders or agents of the Tide Callers. They're the squads that kind of patrol the territories of the Songbirds. Imagine if all the brightest scientists kind of went underwater and decided to live in some like submersibles and underwater cities, and then also develop cybernetic augmentations. I don't know what she has currently, but I will think of it as the game goes. But and um who are she's also a teacher and educator of the nestlings, or the young, the youth of the songbird factions.
Cool. Extremely cool. I am so excited for this game. All of my players are amazing world builders, and it's really honestly just fun seeing what they bring to the table. It's one of my favorite things about this system. Speaking of which, next up, Angela.
I was like, oh, of course Ella is following the overlay order, and then I realized, no, I have failed. I have not noticed. I have not picked out the pattern rightly. The autism is screaming. Anyways, my name is Angela Lemos Morveja. I use she/they pronouns. Still weird saying that. And I will be playing Emiliana Zapata, who uses she/her pronouns. Emiliana is a survivor who is one of the more immediate descendants of the original leader of the Aegis, who are using the playbook, the lawgivers of the Wasteland, of the New Wasteland, and she's kind of she's kind of one of those people who has lived long enough thus far to be at a state where she's wondering, she's kind of looking back on a large portion of her life and kind of what the legacy is going to be for her family and her faction, and is wondering whether or not she's going to be able to leave anything good behind for everybody. There's a sense of melancholy, but also trying to hold on to some element of hope. She's very grizzled, kind of that archetype, but there's a softness to her that she's had to hide a large portion of her life because of the nature of what her family has asked her to do.
Would you say that she is currently struggling with questions of legacy?
All
That's
right,
good. We can
everybody.
wrap
That is,
the
yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Credits.
It's been a pleasure being
Yeah,
part of
that's
this game.
it. That's
Everyone,
it.
take care. Good luck, everybody.
Guys.
I'm out. Next.
I appreciate you and you indulging my humor. Next up, Syrinx, who are you playing?
You're not following the layout at all.
Oh
You're
no,
going
I like
all over
to
the
mix it
place.
up because
Damn.
I find I like it being in different orders each week. I realize that that's not predictable, but I like it. I don't know. Some people like being second, and other people really hate being fourth. And
I
if I
don't
mix it
mind.
up every time, then
Yeah,
you know.
sure. I was just again, as Angela said, I was not expecting it. Hi all, I'm Syrinx, she, her. Today I will be playing Evangeline Creek, also she, her, a veterinarian and a hunter of the Edenite faction. She has been in contact with many of the monstrous creations out there in nature now that the world has gone to shit. And she has lost a lot in her personal life, which eventually led her to the Edenites, where she found a safe haven. And she basically wants to create a community where no other children have to die. And she is kind of part of the council who is currently ruling the Edenites in their very early phases.
Amazing. Okay. Next, last but not least, Casey, who are you playing today?
Yeah, today I will be playing Dylan Powell, who uses he, him pronouns. Dylan is a relatively recent member of like a small leadership group of the Aryan. The Aryan having been pretty significantly reduced in number and strength as of recent times. Re the criminal, as discussed last time, that is a pretty recent thing that happened, and so Dylan's role and purpose is very much having to do with redemption for the faction and trying to reestablish alliances and find out how to move forward from this point. And an effort to do that is attempting to bring back an Aryan tradition of traveling around and performing magic lantern shows for different factions around it. It hasn't happened in a couple of years, kind of since the big incident, but as Dylan steps into leadership, this is part of his big idea to get the Aryan reestablished and reconnected with other factions.
Amazing. And for the sake of anyone whose memory maybe is not entirely secure for 2 weeks ago, on that bit of storytelling, can you refresh our memories on
Oh yeah.
what happened with this internet criminal incident?
Oh yes. So we decided last week that the Aryan raised the homeland's worst criminal. Um yay. Who destroyed like irrecoverably destroyed a significant portion of the internet. Like all data and storage and things that are up there in Magic Cloudland are just gone forever, gone forever. Yay!
So I'm feeling like of all of the factions, we're gonna get into this later in the stream, but I feel like of all of the factions that might resent the Aryan for this, I feel like the librarians in particular have to like hate that, right? Like fully, yeah, okay, cool. Well, that's gonna be
Yeah.
some
It's
spicy.
it's like the antithesis of everything that we're aiming for.
Yeah,
Man.
and to be clear, the remaining Aryan, I also don't think are particularly happy with it either. I think there was a big fracture in the group that happened between the group that like went that way and the group that is remaining now. But doesn't mean that they were all part of the same thing at one point.
Cool. Okay, great, amazing. Thank you all for your lovely introductions. So just so that you at home know what to expect today, as a rule, Legacy is a post-apocalyptic RPG, which means that there will very likely be references to violence, grief, death, disaster, both natural and man-made. And we are also very specifically interested in telling like a disability-focused story. Um, this is in no way going to be debasing disabled people, nor is it going to be inspiration porn. But it might mean, for example, mention of injury or debilitating injury, or discussion of like gaining disability. So please, when watching the game, go in safely. What I will say is that Legacy is a game that uses a zoom in and zoom out function, where when we're zoomed out, we're talking about kind of like world states and factions, and it's a little bit more kind of table talky as we collaboratively world build. And then when we zoom in, that's a little bit more like a traditional RPG where character like each of the players will be running a specific character and they will be rolling for skills to try and overcome specific individual obstacles, etc. That is to say that I personally find that when we're at the faction level and we're kind of discussing things more abstractly, it's generally a little bit less emotive, and when we're in the zoomed in level, it's a little bit more emotional. But your mileage may vary. Again, just be safe, look after yourself. Okay, so today we're going to be seeing where our factions are, because we ended last session on a turning of the age, which was that we moved forward in time from our kind of opening heist where the various individuals that our players were playing discovered a seed bank and managed to prevent the world from, or specifically prevent the shattered continent of North America from falling into famine in the first year of the apocalypse. We are now about 80 years later, maybe closer to 100. It's a little bit vague. I'm going to say that like there hasn't been super strict calendar keeping, except potentially by the songbirds and the librarians, maybe the Edenites as well, although I feel like I can read the Edenites kind of having almost like a seasonal calendar thing, like doing something that's a little bit more naturally informed than like specifically like the Latin like calendar. But it's certainly in those first few years, with the kind of chaos that followed the apocalypse, as various factions like came to rise, and as people dealt with like the fallout of the apocalypse, which was manifold. I mean, we have this massive lacuna of information as a result of this rogue Aryan, but we also have things that we've discussed, like the fact that the meteor which shattered the North American continent had some kind of alien life form on it, which has caused massive and strange mutations in Earth's flora and fauna. So now there just are huge wildebeest just wandering around and massive sea creatures that have never existed before. Sometimes whole towns and settlements just disappear, and maybe that settlement had the library in it that had the calendars that were most updated. There's a little bit of like loss of information in the first sort of 10, 20, 30 years of the apocalypse for sure. But we're pretty sure that we're coming up on a century now. And I think that that's a consensus that the librarians and the songbirds have. And as we're coming up on a century, it has now been long enough in these decades for your factions to establish themselves, for your factions to start to define kind of like a mission statement, values, to establish an identity outside of just, a ragtag group of survivors who are just trying to stay alive. So, what I'd like each of my players to do is sort of reintroduce to us your factions and then explain to us your character's role within them. We're going to start with just explaining our factions, and then after we've explained our factions, we'll go in to meet each of your characters. So in terms of introducing our factions, first off, I'd love Moz, please, to introduce the songbirds to us, explain to us who they are, what they do, where they're from, etc.
Got it. I can do that. Songbirds are based on the playbook "The Pioneers of the Depths" from the wonderful book. Uh, and Pioneers of the Depths, they're tied to the seas. My goodness, I had this in my brain, but it disappeared. Anyway, Songbird at first started as Operation Songbird on an offshore research facility where the smartest of before the fall came together to try to prevent the fall. But as a post-apocalyptic things happen, you kind of are with the people who you kind of are with when it all falls. Um, and they decided to follow a leader who said to follow their own needs rather than the collective. They would say the phrase is the cage or the bird, the sea or the shore, trapped between having no land to settle but having no lands on shore worthy to settle after the fall. Many of them now they have like submersibles. They live underwater or have created these displaced like cities. Their major city is Rapture's Echo, and a smaller little populace called Nautilus. And they have different needs and requirements or like cultural needs and requirements based on like where they are in the ocean. So those who are in Nautilus are a little bit deeper in the water, and there are hulking like diving suits, things like that, like where they are trying to like people who work or like an industry there that they work underwater to maintain the underground city that's like pretty much imagine like a submersible that's with like a heavy weight at the bottom, and then people built like cities on top of it. And um that group is called like Steam Hearts. They also have like scouts and guards that go around on the tides to look for resources called the Tide Callers. And the faction at this point would have industries based on like different types of biology and science. So those who are like marine biology and learn marine biology would kind of go into tide calling, and those who are in more engineering and like in like I don't know what's the word, mechanics or architecture would go into like Steam Hearts, stuff like that. Was there anything else? Oh, muted. Sorry.
You're muted,
No,
my love.
you muted.
You are muted, my love.
I'm so sorry. I mentioned I am really tired. Um, no, that's great. I love that. It's a really, really good. Like, what I want from each of these is kind of a picture of like what your faction is and what they care about. And I think you've given us that. Like, the songbirds are interesting because they're quite isolationist, and they also have this like real priority interest in science, and specifically marine wildlife, which is also really interesting. I want to ask you, because I want to ask each of you as you introduce your factions, which other faction do you have the strongest relationship with? That could be positive or negative. And we actually are quantifying this by a number of ties that like each faction has on each other. So which one do you think like has the strongest relationship with the songbirds at the moment?
I think it would be the Aryan because they are closer to the water.
Yeah,
But it could also, yeah, I think that there would be the first people that we have kind of that revealed the Songbird's location, and because of that bond and the fact that they're also on the tide and the shorelines, and with large moose, yeah, I feel like they would be great partners.
Cool. And you were gonna say, but also, Moz, is there another faction that you think the songbirds have a strong relationship with?
Yes, that would be with the Aegis, because a pioneer has left and joined up with the Aegis, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm so sorry, but they believe in their doctrine the most. So, in a way, they're bonded by that principle.
That's very cool. No, you're saying age is right, I believe. It's the way that Angela has been saying it. So,
I go back and
uh,
forth between two. I don't care.
yes,
Either's fine.
it's ancient Greek. Listen, I don't know how many of us on this call speak ancient Greek. I'm not sure how many people watching specifically speak it rather than read it. Maybe if you do ancient Greek opera, I guess. But anyway, I apologize in advance if we're missing that. But yeah, great. Okay, cool. So I think like with that, then I want to use that as a stepping stone to say, okay, so the Songbirds, one of their strongest current political relationships is with the Aryan because the Aryan are their liaison to the shore. So, Casey, please could you tell us about the Aryan?
For sure. Yeah, so the Aryan are a faction of travelers. They travel in a caravan, don't have one specific settlement. They are just kind of moving all around all the time, specifically, especially because of the piece of tech they have from the Forgotten Heart, the big map of the world. They are very much invested in cartography, charting maps and paths around the world, and are pretty adept movers around the continent. They can get from place to place pretty effectively, and they also have at least a cursory trading relationship with every other faction. So they are much more focused on like art related goods, especially on photography and earlier videography. But now that that's not really as much of an easy option, much more like older types of photography. So I think they've done a lot of like cyanotyping of like local like flora and can offer up that as information about different places, and they can put on magic lantern shows that they travel around, and they're more like a performer or like artist type guild. And I think the Aryan as a group are historically like quite focused on celebrating what we have now as opposed to being focused on trying to get back to what we were or in trying to become something like entirely different and new. They're much more focused on the present, and I think that that led to a big divergence in the Aryan that happened recently, with specifically one individual kind of spearheading it. I've named him Lucas, but uh, and I think took that idea of like we need to be anchored in the present to mean that we need to let go of the past and we need to do everything we can to like it doesn't matter anymore. Like it doesn't, if all that matters is the present, then like why are we still keeping anything from the past around? And it skewed that way as opposed to like celebrating of the present being irrevocably intertwined with understanding the past and where things came from, which I think is where the other half of the faction kind of ended up, which I think is where Dylan is. It has been a challenging recent few years for the Aryan, and I think that split was really, really bad. The subsequent internet destruction was really, really bad. If it's all right, I would like to swap one of their needs and surpluses to kind of reflect this. I'd love to swap prestige into a need and barter goods into a surplus.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's great because yeah, I was thinking that too, which is that I imagine this really damaged your trading relationships with everyone. Like you're the
yeah.
trading guild, but no one
Oh, that
trusts
wasn't
you
good.
anymore.
That wasn't. I don't think that was good. And I think Dylan is trying to do. Oh, also discuss this briefly, pre-call. But Ella, if it's all right, I would love for Dylan to be Lucas's brother.
Oh yeah,
Which I think
yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. I
relationship
love that.
that maybe only the Songbirds know, or like a very trusted ally. I think Dylan does not try to advertise that, but is not going to deny it.
You know
Yeah,
what?
and
I
Dylan
oh,
specific. Oh, sorry.
I just finish what you were saying, and then I've got to think. But you go
Okay.
first.
Yep. And so I think Dylan, as part of this, has stepped up as a new leader recently and is trying to salvage what's going on here and figure out kind of how to move forward from this point for the faction. I also think that since two of the Aryan needs are medicine and recruits, that things are just really rough here, and that they've kind of been in dwindling numbers for a while. I think there's like 7 of them. I think there are 7 people in this caravan, and Dylan is trying really, really hard to make sure that this group of people stays afloat and doesn't, vanish. I think that's where they're at. Yeah.
I love this, and it's such a stark contrast to the songbirds. You know, where the songbirds have fully like got like cities building up, like and really like what sounds like a really growing population and like good resources. And then like it's really interesting to know like as we play across this campaign whether the Aryan will just continue to be this like teeny tiny minor faction on the very outsides because of Lucas's actions, or if they will ever kind of regain and like rebuild in numbers. I would actually love to interrupt our introductions here just for a little mechanical thing because I do think that Dylan being his brother is really fun, but I also think that's really fun information for like each faction to know. So I want every faction except the Songbirds, please, to roll subterfuge. So that's using your faction's sleight stat. So you'll roll 2d6 and then add your faction sleight stat. Oh, sorry, not including the Aryan because the Aryan obviously know this. And then Moz, as the Songbirds, I want you to roll diplomacy. So this is going to be using your faction's reach stat. So add roll 2d6 and add your faction's reach stat. And then all of you tell me what you get.
That would be a 4. We don't do well at slight related tasks. We don't know information. We just know how to keep people alive.
The Aegis are not subtle. Like
No,
that thing.
we don't
Like-
know things. Nobody trusts us to know anything. They only trust us because we haven't killed them, and we've killed the thing trying to kill them.
Which we appreciate. Thanks for that.
Listen, at least two groups of nerds need us to live. I'm okay
That's
with
true.
that fun game.
Nerd protector of the wasteland.
The librarian's got a 12.
Oh, that
amazing.
sucks.
Oh,
That
That'll be the
sucks.
one good roll. That's it.
I
The
so
good one
badly wanted the
thing.
librarians especially to do well. What did the Edenites get?
8.
8, cool. And Mars, what did the Songbirds get?
What was the stat that the songbirds are
Reach.
supposed to use?
So it's your faction's reach stat.
It's a 5.
Okay. So
Good God.
the Aegis and the Songbirds actually don't know that Dylan is Lucas's
The
brother.
songbirds? Or the
Yeah, even the Songbirds, I think don't know because that failure on that diplomacy roll, unless you feel strongly otherwise, Casey, I don't want to overrule something about your faction, but for me, what the story that roll tells me is that the Aryan don't currently feel like they can trust the Songbirds with this information, and it might not be about the Songbirds so much as it's like we don't want to damage the one positive relationship we have left by being
Right.
like here's a volatile risk. And so I think it sounds to me like a political issue. And whilst but again, it's your faction, you have veto over this. Would you like the Songbirds to know or not?
I'm okay with the songbirds not knowing. I would love for Echo to know. I think it would be an interesting relationship for just Echo and Dylan to be
Ooh.
the ones that knew that.
I really, really love that. And Moz, if you're down with that, I like it too because it means that Echo hasn't told the higher ups yet. Hasn't told everyone
Yep.
else.
Oh my God, the
Why did everyone
drama.
come here
I
deciding
know,
to
and
go
this
with
is
big
what I
brain
love
moves
about these
today?
games.
Everyone woke up and chose pro gamer moves as their focus. What is this?
Okay, the Edenites. So on that 8, that's a mixed success. And normally mixed successes in the subterfuge stage, at the zoomed out stage, is like it's normally a kind of bigger thing. So it would be like you send a group of spies who get caught, and then you do get the information, but you lose something in the area, and now know you're fighting them. But I don't think that really makes sense for this situation. So what I'm going to say instead is that I'm going to interpret it as the Edenites know that there is a relative of Lucas who did this big destruction of knowledge alive, but you don't know who it is. So you don't know that it's Dylan, but you do know that there is someone among those 7 people in the Aryan caravan. You know that one of them is related to Lucas, and you don't know whether or not they're a sympathizer with his beliefs, but you know that like the Aryan are protecting someone who is still like related to them. So I think that's what the Edenites know, and you can do with that knowledge what you will, and you can have your characters and your agents do with that knowledge what you will. Aaliyah, you fully know, and the Aryan don't know that you know. So like the librarians like absolutely have like actually a lot more detail on everything. But to the point that like the Aryans have no idea that you have this information, and this is also not only do you know that and the Aryans don't know, but you also know that everyone else doesn't know. So this is a card that you can play. Like, you know that the Aegis don't know. You know that the Edenite know that it's someone, but they don't know who it is. And you know that there is someone in the Songbirds who knows, who has not told everyone else in the Songbirds. So
Oh,
you
this
have
is
this like
miserable.
really like Jenga tower block piece of information where like the librarians can kind of like press that button at any point to really sow some discord among the factions. That's what I'm going to say, and I'm also going to say you get +1 data from that roll, as well as a resource, because it was a
Sweet
12. Like 12
Christ.
is like the highest success you can get. You get fancy prizes when you get crits.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well,
no
it wasn't a
problem. No
natural
worries.
12.
No, it's still a 12. It's still 12. You still can. Um, thank
Horrifying in a way I deeply enjoy.
Okay, I enjoyed that mechanics interlude. I am excited to see what falls out from it. Next up, Angela, please could you introduce the Aegis to us? Tell us like who they are, what they're about, where they're based, kind of their whole vibe.
The Aegis are my way of sort of conceptualizing a group who's inspired a lot by sort of disability justice enclave pods, a lot of Black Bloc and Antifa activists, and basically just actually looking at a lot of communities that have worked on matters related to like sexual assault or sexual violence and domestic violence, and trying to figure out what would those communities be like if they functionally actually took care of one another instead of blaming certain people. I woke up shady today. It's fine. But I kind of had this envisioning of them is that they're very much wedded to a certain kind of militancy that places a lot of chronically ill and disabled folk at the forefront of the people that they are focused on taking care of. And they're the kind of people who have, for the most part, never really had any patience for anyone rich, anyone working with a sense of entitlement. It's very much been since the onset. Like their origin points have even come from a group of disabled activists who were like, okay, a massive catastrophe has just hit everywhere in the US. The rich will organize in a way to ensure their own well-being and protect their interests before they give a shit about anybody else. We are going to strike first because we have to. And literally part of the backstory is they raided a private arms facility in order to obtain weapons necessary to protect themselves. They've lived through a whole unfortunate tragedy and massacre that occurred in the midst of doing that, and have had to try and take care of themselves. And a lot of the people who've lasted up to this point kind of trying to figure out what the longevity of that is going to be and what the working practical way of approaching doing that is going to look like for the future. There's still some folks who are, I think, of the group that remains, probably only like a few dozen very committed folks, but of leadership, a lot of it has come from sort of the closest family chosen or blood of the original group who raided the facility, who are now like trying to figure out what is this going to look like towards the future. So that's sort of the overall focus of who they've been. And now it's probably with this first stage of us playing this out, trying to focus on like what is trusting people actually going to look like, because I think we've had such a long history even more recently of not trusting too many people, but maybe in the past decade or so that's been changing.
Okay, the librarians are kind of descended from who did we call him? Alex Carson from our first session. They ended up finding a library slash institution where it had cloning facilities. And they decided that they were going to save pre-world or pre-fall technology for the future for use and help in people, and have utilized these clone vats to make sure that they have enough people to be able to do this. In the past, we have, well, at the moment right now, we are collecting technology, data on other people. We are kind of information brokers. We do sell information. We were actually one of the hardest one hit by the Aryans' betrayal, destruction of the internet capabilities. They stole one of our members and brutalized them. I think is a thing. But our strongest relationship is with the Edenites because we buy their stuff all the time. We like their products, and we had another thing on them. Oh, they're gonna save us all. That's what it is. They are. We think they have got the strongest chance for rebuilding, reconstituting. In that, I will be playing Fib. Fib is just a average architect seeker, goes out into the wasteland looking for technology and whatnot, but they are dissatisfied with how the establishment has been taking things. The library has, in the last 100 years, by being brutalized and having relationships with other people that have been strained and tenuous at best, have fallen into kind of an isolationist standpoint. They have uh, a point of or a piece of technology that they've discovered from the wastelands that they call the mirror wall, and basically hides their entire society from the outside people. They still conduct trade, they still have relationships, but no one knows where the library is and no one can seem to find it. And Fib themselves doesn't particularly like this. They think the teachings, what was said was that we were bringing technology for the betterment of all people, not just hiding away from society. And that's kind of where we start. Yes. Yeah. What was that? Give me a second here. There's so many papers. The I love it.
Yes. I believe folks cannot hear Ella or see Ella on the overlay right now, so we're hearing an oh no, and then she disappears. is
My
a
favorite part was
fascinating
actually
turn
the
of
cut
phrase.
off like halfway
no.
through the no.
I had mine at oh no. Okay.
Oh no.
I said, oh no, and then can you see and hear me now?
Yep.
I don't.
Well, I mean,
Okay, I think. Wait.
okay. I'm gonna do my "Can you see me" dance. This is my "Can you see me" dance. Can you?
Can
Okay.
someone please
Yes,
put
I am
that-
seeing you on the overlay, and I'm seeing the movement that may or may not be taken directly from jazz hands. We'll see.
Do you think that
Okay.
if Dylan did that waltzing up to the librarians that the relationship would be fixed?
It is a relic of the past, just like
Hey guys.
Okay. I'm not sure where I was lost, so I'm just gonna refresh. Although now I can't see Aaliyah.
Aaliyah is also having a quick thing. So
Okay.
Aaliyah was okay with your decision regarding Mirrorverse memory difficulties, from what I was catching and
Yes.
checking in with all the chats.
I got that from her. I'm not. Okay, well, whilst we wait for Leo to return, I'm going to repeat what I said in case anyone missed it. Apparently, people could read it on the subtitles, but just in case you're not reading the subtitles, my suggestion for the side effect of the mirror wall is that it's affecting the librarian's memory. It's temporarily affecting their short term memory, but prolonged exposure could lead to prolonged neurological damage. And as the librarians have begun to realize this, people who leave the settlement, who go on like field expeditions and stuff, have started suggesting that they reduce their usage of the mirror wall and find some kind of safety mechanism. But people who stay in the settlement are concerned that like they'll be immediately overpowered. There's this real fear of isolationism. Ideally, Aaliyah would hear this, but we might need to discuss this off stream. But just for clearing of the record, just to clarify, I don't think like the Aryan as a group are not violent. So whilst Lucas by himself like might have been like an unsavory character, the Aryan were not responsible for any violent actions. They certainly weren't like coordinating like kidnapping people or harming them in that way. Aaliyah, are you back? Yay! Yeah, just to clarify on that, I think it makes sense for the librarians to be afraid that things could become violent. And I think like if Lucas by himself like maybe got into a little bit of like a firefight and was just a bit of a piece of work, like that makes sense. But yeah. Also yes, so just to clarify on that. Also, for people watching, we are saying Aryan and Aryan. To be very clear, this is spelled Arian. It is not Aryan, as in Aryan, as in white supremacists. We are talking
Oh my god.
Arian.
Oh, it's
Arian.
Arion, like the
ION.
Greek.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's a myth. It's
There-
there's a vision. There's a vision.
It's just I really don't want people who have just stumbled
Yeah.
into the stream to be like, why are they talking about Aryans? That's not what's happening. It's not.
No,
Just to be clear,
no.
like,
Don't worry.
Not at all.
Several of us would take issue with this from many
Yeah,
different
no,
Absolutely
sources.
not.
Exactly. It's just definitely one of those words where, like, I know that if I hear it and I'm not paying attention, I'm like, what the fuck? So just to be super clear, just to make sure we're all safe, we're all good. Okay. So amazing. So I'm really interested in the tension. I also think that there's this real theme of isolationism versus community that is emerging from multiple factions here, right? Like the Songbirds and the Aegis and the Librarians have all kind of retreated a bit from society, but are now at this juncture in this decade, in this century, this feels like the moment where they are all being kind of tested on that policy and really trying to decide like whether that actually is the best thing for their survival. And meanwhile, the Aryan, I feel like, are one of the only factions who are sure that they don't want to be isolationist and have been sort of made isolationist by default due to the like bad actions of one bad actor. So this is really interesting. Syrinx, wrap it up. Tell us about the Edenites.
Yeah. The Edenites started from a very nice old lady called Cyril, who I played back in the first episode. They are basically a group of innovators, of like people who already had something to do with like nature or animals, or even like biology, and very medical stuff as well, where it's a combination of people trying to help humanity and save humanity by using nature and saying like nature and adapting ourselves with this new kind of like natural environment is the only way we can go forward. Seeing as horrible monsters and all kinds of creatures have emerged which we know nothing of, so even prior knowledge would do us nothing in this moment. It's getting to know all of the new environments around us and trying to cope with this and even thrive in this. They are like a more tight-knit community of eccentric people. They have over time started also like gene splitting, like merging their own genes. Well, yeah, I say it like that, like merging their own genes, their own like human parts with animal and with plant and with natural parts, so that some of them walk around with like fungal pieces. We have I would find her name again, but the lady you played the last time that we found with her like face and
Amanita.
fungal.
Yeah,
Uh, Abatha?
Amanita. I'll
Amanita.
write it down for you.
Yeah, so for example, she had like fungal parts in her, and these fungi had somehow taken over part of her and like made her live through things that she shouldn't have lived through. That's what kind of the Edenites are built on as well, saying, hey, there's this new weird biological system around us. The best way for us to thrive in it is to understand it and then to merge it with ourselves, to make it our own, to live side by side in a symbiosis. Um, yeah. What else do I have
Well,
to
I'd
say?
actually so off the back of that, I'd like to suggest something for you, Syrinx. I would kind of like to pitch to you that Amanita is still with the Edenites in
Yeah.
some way. So basically, she did have an unnaturally long life in the first instance,
Yeah.
but also now she's been largely kind of taken over by these glowing purple fungus. So she's almost like she looks like a nymph or like a wood nymph or something, but like made of this like glowing purple mushroom that's like completely taken over her. And nowadays she doesn't really move very much.
Yeah.
She doesn't really talk, but the Edenites believe she's still alive. She has these eyes that are always open, that are always kind of glowing with these kind of like sparkling spores. And like there's this kind of like mist of spores around her. And she's kind of like this living question of like and in some ways like I think it would be cool if for the Edenites they see this as a good thing, but maybe like you don't really let outsiders see her because you don't want them to like take it the wrong way and think that you are like trying to be subsumed by or consumed by nature, because you kind of like have an understanding of this relationship. Would that be okay with you? I kind of like
Yeah,
the idea.
I feel like it's a nice thing because like Cyril was just like a human, so she died. But the fact that Amanita would still be around, I think that could be very cool. I think the way the Edenites are like ruled is like by a council, but I would imagine that Amanita is in it. And also the fact that she's like she can't move right now, but she's very much still taken care of. And I would think that she's also the kind of person that would because when she would have been brought in, it would have been like, oh, this is very curious, we want to learn more about what's happening to her. And like maybe some people within the Edenites right now actually have like the same like fungal, I don't know if that's possible, but like the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
fungal infection that she has, where it's like something that has been carried out throughout
For,
several like people.
for sure. Like, and I think it's really like up to you, like how far that went within your faction. I think from the perspective of like the NPC and like the world, I think that like Amanita was the kind of person who if there were Edenites who came back who were gravely injured or something, or like if they found people who'd been like trapped in rubble or something and were like had been starving or really they needed thirst or that kind of
Yeah.
thing, I think Amanita would have passed it on to them. Like the spores would almost kind of had acted by themselves. So yes,
Yeah.
there is definitely like a strain, like a mineral vein of like this kind of purple fungus like through the Edenites. But then it's up to you if you think that like then other Edenites tried to find a way to like bottle that and use it as curative, especially as Amanita became less able to act herself. Like, and she is now like I think pretty much locked in place, almost like a statue. It's a little bit of a rose court situation, I think, where like she is like maybe she's in the place where the council happens, but she's mostly still. But you just believe that she's still alive. But yeah, whether anyone tried to like learn how to use that and start using it more proactively instead of just life or death situations.
Yeah, totally. I feel like the whole point of them is trying to figure stuff out. And when they would have found that this like heals people, like, okay, sure, we can use it to like take over people who are going to die anyway. But can we use it to heal up to a degree where it doesn't take over? Like all of that stuff they would have been testing, of course, with whatever consequences it has that they deal with. That's something I didn't mention yet. The Edenites do have a little bit of a like maybe an ethical problem where if one or two people die from something that happens and they don't talk about that. If a person is becoming a fungal like tree thing in the back corner, then they just like that happens and they learn from it and they deal with that. um so yeah, that's something. They're not hippies, they're not that nice.
Impact.
um
I,
but
I
yeah,
I
really
totally.
love that. I'm going to move on over there.
I really enjoy once again that we have like the kind of like it's more and less. I don't even know how to explain it. Like the more or less grounded groups. So we've got like the Aryan and the Aegis, who are all like pretty much like their feet are on the ground. They're like, we care about people. We're quite social groups. And then you've got like the librarians, the songbirds, and the Edenites, who are all doing something funky, just real funky, just something that in the world before would definitely have had you labeled as cults. And you're all just like, yeah, it's whatever, it's cool. I especially enjoy that in this scenario, again, the Aryans are somehow the most unpopular ones, and all they want to do is find stuff you need and give it to you. like, like you've got the Edenites like fully like turning people into weird human fungus hybrids, and the Aryans are just like, hey, can I give you some
You
rice?
deleted the
My
internet.
photograph from I took a picture.
um Gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful. Okay, thank you everyone.
I just love
So
the
as we've
idea.
kind of brushed across the course of these introductions, each of these factions has needs and surplus. So they have things that they have a lot of, their surplus, and they have needs, and these are both literal and abstract. So sometimes your surplus can literally be like supplies or weapons, but sometimes your surplus or your needs could be things like motivation and morale and things like that. Like all of these things, both the abstract and the literal, are necessary for a faction's survival. They all also have essentially like political tokens, which is a little bit like the kind of strings mechanic that you get in stuff like TSL, where they all have like things that they owe each other, things that they've done to each other. We've already kind of started to build that political web. And finally, they have resources and stats. So the factions themselves have stats, which we used earlier, and those stats and their resources reflect kind of in a lot of ways literally like their power in this world. So things like data and tech is very much at a premium because so much has been lost from the world before. But also like it's like a faction's ability to literally overpower another faction, like whether it's like to try and like invade a settlement, to try and take something back, to try and steal something, whether they do that like subtly through subterfuge or through force, because of like a disagreement and a real breakdown in values, and differing values. And then within those factions, we have individual characters who exist at different times in history. So we're about 100 years out from the apocalypse now, when a meteor laced with some kind of alien fungus shattered the continent of North America, and led to like a global change in the flora and fauna of the world. Shortly before that, highly developed AI technology, essentially any like sentient technology, decided to just leave. They just left. We don't really know where they went. World militaries tried to stop them. They did not care about collateral damage, and that led to a lot of damage to working class people, and disabled people and otherwise marginalized people. The same is true of the climate collapse, which was kind of like rushing onwards before the meteor hit. And so the world we're in is kind of was already wounded and then got this big old scar from that meteor crash. 100 years later, we've got enough food, we've had enough time that these various factions have started to build up. There's some kind of like sci-fi fantasy stuff happening with the Edenites and this kind of like, this the fungus and how that's happening. We've got the librarians and their strange technology. We came from a world that was much more advanced than like the 20th, first century. But that technology is something that this world doesn't entirely understand anymore. We've got the songbirds again with like this very advanced technology, and also kind of like interacting with these new creatures in the ocean that we may or may not fully understand. We've got the Aegis attempting to kind of carve out safety and survival for a group of disabled people who knew that no one else would stay behind to help them. And we've got the Aryan, who were formerly the people kind of pulling everyone together as the messengers of the wasteland, and trying to keep culture alive, but who have now very much had their reputation damaged. Will art survive? That's the real question. Okay. So now I'd like us to zoom in to meet each of your characters. We're going to meet ideally two, maybe just one before the break, and then after the break we'll meet everyone else. And in each of your introductory scenes for your characters, I'd like you, the players, to describe the location that your character is in. It can be somewhere that you think like suits them and is appropriate to them. Maybe it's a laboratory, maybe it's a library, maybe it's out in a field, maybe it's on a mountain, maybe it's by a lake. It can be anywhere you want. And I'd like you to describe where they are and who they're with. So is this a sibling, a colleague? Oh, sorry, that was a cat. Um, so who they're with. So it could be a sibling, it could be a colleague, it could be a political rival, it could be someone that they trust, it could be someone they don't trust. Introduce like who that person is, where they are, and what your character is doing. And I'd like these scenes to tell us something about who your character is, to explain to us who they are. I'd also love to know like what your characters look like. Just give us a bit of a sense of their vibe. So we're going to start with Angela. Please, could you introduce us to Emiliana?
I would be happy to do so. Folks can hear me, correct? Okay, good. I just had to double check because today has been technologically cursed. Uh, Emiliana is, I would say, at bare minimum late 50s, maybe even going to like mid 60s, somewhere around there. She, I think, looks a bit older than she actually is. I think just because of the stress that's happened on her body a lot of the time. Uh, she has kind of a weathered, mildly gender ambiguous, so a little bit more of a punch these days. I would say she has kind of choppy gray hair that's relatively short that kind of contributes to some of the gender ambiguity of how she looks. And she has a lot of different bruises and scars all along her body, both ones that have just come up from illness and also ones from just fights or just being hurt in the course of protecting people. She is someone who, I think, the moment you see her, you have her entire life story basically laid out just in her body and how she presents herself to the world. She generally tries to keep herself relatively concealed, like hoodies, improvised armor. She has a weapon that she has concealed at all times, like on her person. And I'd like to think this is entirely my live-in partner's doing that I'm starting this in this scene. I think she's actually out somewhere foraging for things, probably mushrooms and such. She's probably closer to like somewhere out in the forest in Seattle kind of area, or somewhere coastal that still has like a decent like forest kind of component to it. I think there's an element where she's taken a moment to sit down because she's having to find things to act as mobility aids these days, and she's having a moment where she is sort of pausing, holding herself up against a tree, and watching as all of the color of everything she's seeing is starting to go black, and just sort of having the realization that her eyesight's going. It comes back after a little bit, and it's actually an experience I've had in my life a couple of times where my eyesight just starts going black in the morning. And she's thinking about what the extent of that is going to be. And I think she's out here with a close friend who has often been someone who has frequently known how to challenge her in the right kind of way. That's the way I think I'd describe the dynamic between them. I'm inclined to think her name is Tamara. I will let you, Ella, decide any romantic or other tonal elements of that sort to it, but I think at the bare minimum, the dynamic is always characterized by close, considerate, compassionate, but challenging.
Cool. Okay, so Tamara comes up to Emiliana, and Tamara is a tall trans woman with kind of weather-beaten skin and a long kind of salt and pepper braid. She's wearing like a flannel shirt and kind of torn jeans and like practical boots. And one sleeve of her shirt is just tied off. She is an amputee. But as she gets closer, she says, "So, is this enough hours after I said that we should take a rest and go back that we're gonna take a rest and go back now, or do we need to go into hour 3?"
It's about time we should take a rest.
Hey, man, I owe Eric a fiver. Well, shall we?
Was it that obvious that I was going to push myself again?
I don't think that there has been a day in the entire time I've known you when you haven't pushed yourself, unless your body has literally just fully cut off your brain's ability to command it. So, yeah, it was pretty predictable. But I said that you would go for hour 3, and he said that you were smarter than that. So I guess I was wrong.
I'm glad to know somebody believes in me.
Tamara like claps your shoulder gently and says, "We all believe in you. That's the problem."
Considering how the conversations have gone at camp recently, I'm less inclined to believe that. Folks think that people voting me in with the rest of the council to lead the group this time around was family legacy at work.
Kids are always going to be kids, and especially going to be bad losers. This is what happens when we lead a group of hotheads. They're going to be hot-headed, and they're going to get angry, and they're going to grump, and they're going to be frustrated, and they're going to point fingers, because that's kind of what we do. We find people to point fingers at, and then we punch them
Okay, but what
really
if they're
hard.
right? I'm I'm having a lot more days than I expected that I need to recover, and I'm used to it. Folks have been really patient with me, and especially our group. Everyone more directly understands when you have a bad day, and it starts getting to you. But it's been getting worse even than that, and we still need we still need folks to protect our group.
Tamara kind of gestures for you to like sit down. There's kind of a rock nearby that you can kind of sit on. Um, she's like there to help you if you want it, but she won't help you without your explicit invitation. Um, as you sit, she sits beside you and she kind of stares for a moment. So you said you were foraging. I think that this is that kind of like scrubby, deserty brushland. Like that there are things to forage here, but it's a kind of red dust, and that red dust as it hazes out towards the horizon, like flushes upward into the sky and turns its sunset orange even before the sun starts dropping low. And Tamara's like this salt and pepper kind of coarse thick hair like kind of blows around her face for a moment as she kind of looks out at it, and her jaw is tense. And she says, "Call me soft, but I don't actually want to see you gunned down by some arsehole who doesn't know what's good for them."
Well, considering that one of those assholes is my ex-boyfriend, I don't think it's
Okay, but like
entirely
he's not
undeserved.
gonna win. Like you can't give him that. Like come on.
I'm not going to give him that. I don't, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he won that anyways.
I mean, I would be. He's a fucking bad shot. Like, and you are pretty fast for someone who has as many things going on with your body as you do.
Fair.
Plus, you've always been great at unpredictable movement. I. There are other ways to fight. You don't
I,
have to be on the front lines. You
I
can
know.
teach the kids.
I know. I know. It's look, the reason that I think he would win is because I don't think I'd have enough left in me at this point to do him in. I still love him very much. He was an asshole for leaving and fucking off with a good chunk of our group, but I don't know if I think there's a huge part of me now that's wondering what is violence going to be the only thing that I'm going to leave all of you? That we're going to leave the rest of this world? I mean, we're still looking for whoever the hell that rando who fucked off with a portion of the internet went. I don't know what happened to them. I don't even know how they got away. I don't even know
I'm
how.
re-
I still don't understand a lot of the tech enough to understand how you just go fuck off with a section of the internet's history.
I've just been assuming that like someone from the librarians did him in, Like I don't know, you know how it's always the quiet ones? I just feel like they're the kind of people who have stiletto daggers up their sleeves, Like they just turned up in the night and like
Yeah,
severed like a nerve in his spinal column or something. Like that just feels like their vibe.
okay, now that you said that, it does. But the problem with that thought is that while a quiet one is being quiet, a loud one will come and just directly kill you. So I don't think that actually works out.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's
M M. Listen, tell me about that scar. And she points to a scar on your forearm. Um, you remember this scar because it was the scar you got the day that you saved her life.
I I remember I remember there being something extremely terrible going after a group of folks. I heard them some distance away. I think an Edenite or two was involved trying to get a new friend of some kind or test something with some sort of fungus. And some of the animals nearby didn't react very well to it. I don't remember exactly what it was. All I know is that it was terrifying. That there was a lot of people about to be hurt. And the option was either risk my own skin or let you all get hurt. So I did what the sensible person would do, which is to say the not sensible thing. and I risked my own life to make sure you'd be okay.
Tamara like kind of like puts her hand into the space between you, like offering it for you to take it. But again, like not taking it unless you do. She squeezes your hand and her skin is warm and dry and soft. And she says, she looks you in the eye and she says, your legacy is that we're alive and no one wanted us to be. Your legacy is that we're alive despite that fact. And it's not a comfortable one or an easy one. And maybe one day there'll be some version of the Aegis that is more about protecting than it is about killing. But right now, in these years, in these first decades, the question was who was going to star in this survival movie? The arseholes who want to play their own Mad Max fantasy? Or people who look like you and me? And you made a choice. And I don't think it was the wrong one. And I like to think that's not just because I wouldn't be alive if you'd chosen different. They started this fight, not you. You just survived it.
I just want you, and I think she moves closer, and it's that kind of thing of just like sidling, like head against shoulder if Tamara lets her, and it's that kind of thing of there's a stiffness to how she normally moves, almost like she always has this sense of tension in her body. That there's always, especially in her eyes, you just always see her, even when it's a quote unquote like calm moment, she's just always looking everywhere, just focused, scatterbrained, but always attentive. And I think it's a rare moment of her like looking directly in Tamara's eyes because she knows that M does not really like doing that. It's very uncomfortable and very unsettling for her to do that. But she looks in her eyes and she says, I just want to leave behind something more than this, than us just surviving.
Then I think you've got to start teaching the kids. Because if they don't know how to survive, then all of this is kind of for nothing. You're the best shot I've ever seen and more resourceful than anything and too brave for your own good, but what you are not is everybody who will come after you. And once you're gone, we need to find a way to survive that isn't just someone ask Em if she doesn't mind coming on this mission.
Is it okay to admit that I'm tired and hurting from all this?
Yeah.
It's probably at least a few minutes of that. That's probably one of the last moments, I think, for that kind of scene. It feels appropriate, unless you have
Yeah.
something else in mind. I think
No,
the last thought I have to add on that is that she looks behind whatever rock they're at, and she sees a variant of a mushroom that she gets a extremely rare impish smile and says when this one is kind of cooked properly, it has almost like a steak or like heavy beef like meat kind of like quality to it. So she's just sort of she's looking at it and she's like, oh, she has the, if it's not too dissonant with the tone of it, she has the crunk from Emperor's New Groove face of, oh yeah, it's big brain time. It's one of those. It's one of those
No,
kinds of expressions.
I like it. Listen, she's complex. She contains multitudes. Gorgeous. Thank you. Okay, we are going to meet each of our remaining characters. However, I'm going to say let's start the break a little early because I don't want to start a scene and then cut it off 6 minutes in. So we're going to have our break a little early. We will be on break for 10 minutes. Everyone remember to take your meds, hydrate, rest if you need to, get a screen break if you need to, and then we'll come back in to meet the rest of our characters. I cannot wait to meet these people. And then next session we will be playing with them on the ground, zooming in, and seeing what happens when we put them all in a room together, or as the case may be, an apocalyptic wasteland. Okay, are we good to go on break? Yeah, let's do it. Producer Arnica is the best. Uh, I hope you've all hydrated, taken your meds, and just generally dealt with whatever you needed to deal with. We are coming back in to introduce the various kind of individual characters within the factions of Legacy, of this game of Legacy. And then next session, we're going to be kind of seeing them go on an adventure that is going to define this age of the apocalypse, this century of the apocalypse, and kind of what happens, which alliances are made between factions, which alliances are broken, who has more resources, who has less, who leaves this age having improved their position, who leaves this age in a worse position than they were in before. Um, but we're still kind of meeting people at this point and figuring out kind of where they're at and where their factions are at and where they are in relation to their faction. So next up, I would love to meet Fib, please. So I would love it, Aaliyah, if you could please tell me where they are, what they look like, and someone who is with them. It doesn't have to be someone they like, but I want you to explain to me the relationship this other character has with them, and then I'll jump in as that NPC and build a scene to introduce Fib to the rest of the group and to the audience.
Excellent. So Fib is a architect or a seeker of the librarian order, dressed very much like me. They wear monistic robes with circuitry in it. They keep their hair cut short, where I have mine long. Um, Everyone sports a tattoo or a marking on their face, identifying them to each other in the field and whatnot. Um, they know each other as brothers. Names are not big in the librarian order. It is more of the number who you are. I'm architect 1123, which they call themselves Fib. But other architects and other librarians would address them as librarian 1123, or however it would be to other librarians. Fib has recently discovered they spend a lot of their time, and they're still a youngish librarian, uh, very nondescript, shortcut hair, bright blue eyes. Could be she, could be he. You can't really tell. It's not very distinct in them. Um, and they spend a lot of their time outside of the library. They're seeking the wastelands. They're interacting with the peoples that still exist out here in the world, and they're searching for new lore, searching for new tech, trying to piece back the or bring the pieces together of the old world, the world before the fall. They are packing up their gear. They don't have a lot of the librarian order doesn't have a lot of transportation mechanisms, anything like that. So they just go out following rumors with pack animals, horses, that type of a thing. And as they're getting ready, still inside the library, um, Fib is getting their horse together and getting like books and notebooks and what information they think they might need, being accompanied by and helped with a elder family member, an elder of their particular order, not so much a high up in the library, but more like my direct department head. And that would be, he calls himself Cole. He's definitely a him, but he's got a 111. He's librarian 111, whereas I would be 1123. And I am just getting my pack together, getting my things together. I'm specifically, we as the librarians are short in a couple of things. We need defenses, engineers specifically. We're looking for engineers to help rebuild these pieces of technology, and leadership. We believe in each other, but there's no one really pushing us forward at this point in time. So with that, I'm specifically going out into the wastes looking for defenses, things that we can use for that, or maybe energy supplies, tracking down rumors for that.
Cool. And just before we jump into the scene, can I check? So Cole has a name like Fib does. Does that mean that Cole and Fib are kind of they share a point of differentiation from the kind of like more traditional people in the order, or
Yes, because we're sort of the explorers, the people who are outside of the library,
I
going
see.
and grabbing stuff, and it's kind of like that's part of our job. We can recruit other people, and we can bring like the engineer corps or the scholar corps or something if we find something, but our department is basically going out and searching these things out.
And what kind of relationship does Cole have with Fib?
Cole is more standard, but like Fib is their the thorn in their side that they like to see do things.
Mhm.
Like the one who, if you hear that you and your department are going to have to answer something, it's this person who is going to do it without a doubt. It's definitely going to be Fib, but Cole generally approves of what Fib's doing and believes the same things that they do.
Cool. Okay. So I'm gonna say, if it's all right by you, Aaliyah, that the last expedition that Fib went on was to a place called the Verdant Wastes. And these are a sort of semi-toxic mangrove swamp that it exists in this kind of like aqueous, very thick kind of algae area. There had been a lead that there might be a settlement of renegade songbirds out there, and the songbirds are definitely known for being phenomenal engineers. But unfortunately, it didn't turn up anything useful. It was very dangerous. Like the Verdant Waste is known to be a very dangerous location. Is it okay with you if that was the last mission you went on?
Absolutely, yeah, you betcha.
Hey, great. In which case, Cole comes up to Fib as they are packing their horse, and he has this look of kind of fatherly disapproval, where he's kind of proud that you're not doing something he wants you to do. You gotta show a bit of resistance, kid, kind of thing. And he says, well, you know what I told you about the verdant wastes. You've got to bring your mask with you, got to have a handkerchief, got to be real careful about staying clean. Um,
Of course, I've been out in the wastes a number of times. I know what my packing are doing. You're just fussing because you don't want me to go. You're scared of something in this one. Come on, I've done this 100 times. What's really up?
well, so I think, well, actually, oh, sorry, I just realized
No,
I
I
could
love
do.
making my DM do that.
I just realized I could make a mechanic out of this. And I love mechanics in this very, very mechanic heavy game. I'm gonna add even more. So I want to make you do a roll. So what we're gonna say is, I wouldn't say it was that. It's not that. It's definitely not that. Maybe it's this. Okay, I want you to roll plus steel, please. For FIP. Roll 2d6 plus your steel and tell me what you get.
Let me just double check. Uh, and we're officially going with the other two dice that I didn't roll before, so we'll see how those ones work. What did I say here?
Swear if you roll another 12, this game will be cursed for
I
everyone
know, right?
but Leith's rolls.
Well, and I remember that I put in at a very late moment my character here, and I think I've done it differently on Discord than I did in my document that I have looking at. So I'm just checking so I don't lie on you guys. But yes, it is a +1.
Okay.
7.
7. That's a mixed success. Ooh, sorry. I'm so excited. Cool. Yeah, now he mentions it, like there's something niggling at the back of your mind that's like there's something important that you've forgotten. But actually, like now Cole said it, obviously you're going back to the Venom Wastes. Like clearly you weren't comprehensive enough on your last search. Like, yeah, like right, obviously that's what you were doing. And you're kind of looking at your pack and you're like, actually you don't have your gas mask and the cloths that you need to stay clean. Like you've got the completely wrong kit here. It's like you were preparing for a different journey. That's silly. Like obviously what you need is like stuff that's going to be equipped to help you deal with a mangrove swamp. It's time to like pack some like oiled leathers and kind of like some waxy clothes.
And yeah, I stumble and I look at it and I'm like, this isn't what it was. Didn't. And I just sort of like I tuck it in and I'm like, okay, yeah. The waxed clothing, the scarf, and I take inventory and bring out my battered journal towards the back of the end because this has notes from pre-fall, maybe some things. But I start to write this down and write down the actual pack things and stuff. Fold over, crease over the page.
Question for you: does Fib write down everything that they have to do? Like, do they always keep a track? So, like, if they were about to go on an expedition, would they have written something down previously, saying like?
It is a habit. Yeah. They're very meticulous note takers and stuff like that. But it's more a habit than a conscious thing that you're doing. Like I'm journaling. It's just pack for a list. And
So on immediately like higher on the page, as Fib is about to write down kind of the supplies that they need, you see a title. Now where was Fib actually going, Aaliyah?
instead of the verdant waste, because
Yeah,
okay, so the verdant wastes is where I thought I was going, but I'm actually headed. This is the question you're
yeah,
asking.
yeah,
Uh, what would be cool is like a desert, like definitely that Mad Maxy Badlandsy type thing,
yeah.
completely different type of equipment. Looking for the energy rumor that I was trying to track down because there's energy and engineers, and I love going to a toxic swamp to find cyborg Aquest songbird engineers. That's next time.
Yeah, so cool. In that case, you I'm so sorry to the Americans if this is too on the nose, but it entertains my pop culture brain. So where you are actually going is to Los Diablos, which is the flooded ruins of what was once Los Angeles. Um uh
He's right there. Casey's in Los Angeles.
I'll just flip my screen around. You can stare at it.
You're- Ella's
and
calling a flood on you, Casey, is what you're discovering.
Good day.
all
Good day.
around like obviously LA is like desert bound, and so all around like the flooded ruins of what was Los Angeles is desert, and the water itself is like highly toxic and highly saline. You know how there's like those lakes that flamingos can live in but nothing else because it's too dangerous for anything else to touch. Like that's kind of how it got its name, because like the whole city, just like the crater that happened and the weird geological and climate things that like fell out from that meant it essentially just like sunk in, like various kind of volcanic springs like exuded water, but water mixed in with highly toxic minerals into like the city and like eroded and kind of like wore it away until like it's a weird freaky kind of ghost city, like looks like coral made of skyscrapers. And like you cannot touch the water, and so despite being like around what is an LA sized lake, the settlements on the edge are very much like in a kind of water drought. Like they can't like purify this water. They haven't figured out how to. It's something that like they really want. They have been petitioning the Edenites to figure out a way to do. And this is a very very dangerous place with like a lot of kind of badlanders. It's very much the kind of place where like a mob could just push someone into the water if they wanted to get rid of them, because that person will be dissolved by the water. So yeah, that's where you were supposed to be going. And you see like you've got this packing list of like some stuff that would deal with like acid burns and stuff because of like the lake. Like you've got some kind of barter kit because this is the kind of settlement where you can't just turn up and say you're a librarian. You have to have something to trade. Like you have to have a name, obviously. You can't just be librarian 1123. And you wrote these notes earlier this day. You've dated it because you always date your notes. And yeah, you're definitely not going to the Venom Waste. You don't know why you thought you were going to the Venom Waste. You don't know why Cole thinks you're going to the Venom Waste. That was like last month.
And can I flip through my journal and would I have a note from that trip?
Yep.
Like I could see that. Very, very, very strange. Has and this is a fairly recent occurrence. This isn't something that I would
It
know
is
that I would.
recent, so I think like this by now you earlier. I hope as the parent this is kind of an effect of the mirror wall. These effects like have been building subtly over time. They've been affecting different people differently. I'd say that this is the first week that it's really evolved enough for Fib to be able to notice it in this
Hmm.
way, like that it's become this pronounced.
Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to know. Um, to the Cole, have you noticed anything slippery with your thoughts, slippery with your memory? I wasn't going to the Verdant Wastes. I'm headed to Los Diablos. There's an energy rumor there. I need to go track down this tech that these desert bandits might be around, if it's dangerous or not. But have you had any slippery memories? Do you remember any of this?
I no, I Are you quite certain? Because I really thought that the engineers were the priority here. Like, and an
No,
energy source is all well and good, but it's useless to us if we don't have engineers.
I went there last month, and I bring out my notebook and I show him. I'm like, I looked there for a week. I can remember it now, but there weren't any songbirds there, and there wasn't anything that I've seen of their technology before.
Well, that's well, that's very unusual.
Do you think
I
this might have
suppose.
anything to do with the network loss, the loss of the Wi-Fi?
Uh, Perhaps, but I never went in for all of that sort of cyber chip stuff. Too many adverts, ever since they started marketing those subscription services. I don't like anything, you sign up once and then they've got you for life. And well, I suppose they
Hmm.
don't have me for life because everyone died in the apocalypse, but it could have happened.
Well, I suppose that probably means the two are unrelated, but I don't know. Uh, Keep your ears out. Like I think this is. Hmm.
Fib, are you sure this isn't just one of your sort of flights of fancy? If you would rather go to Los Diablos, that's fine. I understand the mosquitoes in the Verdant Waste. Well, I mean, they are literally super powered. I can see why you wouldn't want to go there, but
You really don't remember me coming back last month? I had
I feel
the
like I
blood
would
poisoning.
remember. What?
Don't you remember? I was sick from breathing the spores in the verdant swamps.
We could have.
I spent 2 weeks away from the department.
I would have. I would have had to communicate with our Edenite liaison about that. I mean, anything spore related, it always has to be filed and sent off as an update. That would have been. I wouldn't have forgotten about that much paperwork. They're tediously particular about spores.
Hmm. Because I have it written down here, and like I'm sure I talked to an Edenist recently, and I can't. I'm sure I did.
Well, far be it for me to say that this is not a fortuitous start to your adventure, but obviously I need to check the archive. I I will check the archive immediately. Well, after I've seen you off. Obviously, these occasions have to be observed so that someone can note them down, so that we remember the exits and the entries. It's important for the annals. I'll write it down. And as he says this, he kind of gets out this book, which is the annals that notes like the entrances and exits of various librarians in the facility. And you see kind of at the same moment he does. You both kind of like look at the page and then look up and make eye contact. And as you do, Cole looks really really unsettled because there is a note on there about the departure of Librarian 1123 to the Verdant Wastes, and the return of Librarian 1123 with like blood poisoning from some unknown spore from the Verdant Wastes. And he's got this pen in his hand, and he's looking at like this date, a month later. Um, I well, there it is in black and white. So I suppose I apologize. 1123. I don't know what has come over me. It must be. I've not been feeling very well the last few days. Perhaps I need a little rest. I was up late last night. We were trying to catalog every episode of a TV series called Supernatural. And there were many episodes, and they seemed to have quite a repetitive sort of plot. It was tiring.
I spent a lot of my junior year going over that one. The first one was a show and many episodes, but then they brought it back and made more.
It just keeps going. God is involved somehow. They don't seem able to die. I'm not sure if what sort of place this stood in the old world, but
Uh, Entertainment for the children, or possibly we'll never know. It's one of those mysteries lost to the epics. But I think I need to track down this energy signature like I was going to. This was my thing, but these aren't the first. This I've had issues with other departments, with other departments heads who've been in the city longer, in the library longer, and it feels like things are getting worse. People aren't remembering things. I think it's our
well,
technology.
oh well. No, I mean, you can't mean the mirror wall. There's nothing about it that could affect our minds. It merely affects whether or not people outside can see us.
We can't know until there's a problem. That's the thing. We're pushing buttons without knowing what these buttons do. It's yes, we need to be stewards of this technology, but we need to do more with it. We need to learn from it, and we need to bring it to the other people.
Well, no, I mean, let's not go that far. We'll have an Aryan problem again. I mean, anything that we share, it will just immediately be destroyed by some other faction that doesn't understand the sanctity of the knowledge that we preserve.
No, we can't do that way. That only ends up healing ourselves, or only ends up hurting ourselves. We don't have the right to make those decisions for everyone else.
But if we don't, who will? It's not like there's some great organizer out there. I mean, you just sort of wander the desert as lawgivers, but they certainly don't run any kind of parliament, unless that parliament is sort of breaking noses.
Still, it doesn't give us the right to just, hide back here with our technology and let them eat each other.
It might not give us the right, but it certainly is safer.
There are more important things in life than safety, and I don't personally think we're going to be able to library our way out of this particular mess, especially if our librarians are forgetting.
We can library our way out of any mess, and libraries are a perfect place to be when one has problems with their memory because everything is written down. But I, young Fib, I admire your idealism. I really do. And has one, or indeed 111, who remembers the earlier days of the apocalypse. I I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there is still more to life than safety and survival. I hope that one day there is a version of this world where we can share our knowledge and not fear that it will be destroyed. I hope that you will be the person who proves that to us. But until it is proven, we must keep to our tried and tested methods. You are right, though, this memory problem is concerning, either for my own health or as a wider trend, and I will investigate it. I will make a note to investigate it. And as he says it, he writes it down. There's obviously like some kind of nervousness that even as he makes this promise, he will forget it.
Talk to the elders. We need to figure out what this problem is. We still need those resources, so I have to go to the desert. This is what we planned. I remember it now. I know it now. Uh, but talk to the elders, convince them, or at least start asking the question. Get them to realize that they don't remember what we promised to do.
I will try, although I do have to act within the political interests of our department as well. And there are only so many tables I can upend in this particular temple. But I will try.
You have covered my ass so many times, old friend. I do appreciate it. I wish I could be less of a pain in your butt.
I would appreciate it if we made less references to ass and butt, but this is a formal occasion, technically speaking. But you have always been a particular one, Fib.
Well, that's why I'm useful out there in the deserts. And I do still want to make sure that in my pack I've got everything, and that's like now I'm double checking. Now that I've remembered everything, I'll be gone for a while. I want to make sure I've got everything.
Yeah. And you check through, and yeah, like I mean, I think you've packed thoroughly. I get the sense that Fib is the kind of character who would, make a list and check it twice. And you have the appropriate equipment for how to deal with Los Diablos. I mean, there is an element of unpredictability. I think that the information that the librarians have on this settlement is that like it's a constantly shifting political landscape. It's a lot of like gang warfare. There's a lot of kind of various like crime mobs, some smaller, some bigger, and really the only way to get an updated sense of the hierarchy is to go there today because it's going to change from week to week. The last time that someone was out there, like it's very likely the hierarchy will have changed. But you can go in knowing that, this is a settlement that respects like power by force, that it's very volatile, and that your interest is to make it very clear that you are not a threat, but you are also not to be trifled with. And I think that that's probably a position that Fib's been in before.
Yeah, and the settlement I'm going to is like it's an independent settlement. There's no real like faction holdings or anything
No
like that.
one faction has control over Los Diablos or the various settlements around it. I think that the one you are going to is Devil's Rock. And yeah, this is very much like everyone who lives on the borders of this like very toxic lake, they are people who are unaffiliated. And they are like unaffiliated by choice, or they are people who have been exiled from the respective factions. All of my players are welcome to kind of add in some ne'er-do-wells from your factions if you want to. I'm very much imagining kind of like snake oil salesman type former Edenites who were like, messing around a bit too much. Aryans who were more interested in taking than giving. Like Aegis who really are just in it for a punch up. And songbirds who've also maybe gone a little bit too far and have like kind of hired themselves out as like muscle, like kind of like the brains behind like a heist operation, that kind of thing. Like, so there's like the handful of like defectors from each of your factions, but there are also just people who survived who did not join any of your factions. And those people, they've kind of like surrounded this like very much like unwantable place. No one wants to live here. You live here by necessity, not by choice. And yeah, it's very, very chaotic as a result.
Excellent. Well, as I'm getting my stuff together, I remember and I think, and I'm like, Cole, actually, there's one thing I think we should also do. Double check that you messaged the Edenites. They've got to know something about memory, some way the brain works. They've got to be able to help.
Yes. Although there was a fascinating thesis actually several years ago about the impact of different kinds of mushroom on brainwaves. And not just in the kind of classic sense, I mean, obviously we're aware of that one, but this was more curative, although I believe it was also quite pleasant for the users. Seems to have been sort of healing on a psychedelic journey, is I believe the technical term. Uh, but yes, I will, of course.
Please let my like story wrap up with coming home, shutting everything down, and having a mushroom party with my entire like clone group. I that's
um, Gorgeous. So I think having given that missive, do you think there's anything else that Fib wants to do before they leave?
um yeah, they're kind of an outsider to these things, or to the library itself. They're the seeker, they're out looking stuff. So they don't really have friends or anything in. It's more like people you answer to. No, I think I've got everything together, and yeah, it's like for Fib, it is finding the new thing, going after the next adventure.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And we leave Fib on that, going after the next adventure as Cole like carefully notes down, Librarian 1123 departed in search of Los Diablos and the settlement known as Devil's Rock, in the hopes of finding a new energy supply for the settlement. And also makes a note himself to explore these potential memory issues with the Edenites. Speaking of whom, Syrinx, please could you introduce Evangeline to us? So I'd like to know like where she is, what she looks like, what she's doing, and someone she's with.
Yeah. Um, the place we zoom into, um, the early stages of the Edenites, it's you have a lot of places that have become, as we previously heard, deserts, like wasteland kind of things. Um, but throughout all of these like desert areas, um, in an unexpected place, there is a very big forest almost. In a place that's like surrounded by just nothing. There is this fairly large forest. And if you were to go into that, um, a bit further into the really center of it, you'll find the community that the Edenites have put up right now. It's not very big. I think like if I'm allowed, maybe it's like 20 to 30 people ish right now. But they have like within this little oddly arranged forest, they have a kind of, if you would have like farmhouses, but like different types of like fields where all kinds of animals are grazing, or otherwise they have fields where they are growing plants. They have several houses where some of them are used for occupations, or some of them are like actual private houses. But it's this very small community in the middle of nowhere, that's thriving in a way that you maybe wouldn't expect them to. Um, as we zoom in, we go into one of the like, I think it's like one of the fenced off places, like a coop. Um, yeah. Uh, we go into one of those like fields. The sun is shining pretty hard today, and we see Evangeline. Um, she's around middle aged woman. She has been through some stuff. Currently wearing like very work attire, some very high weighted waist pants, and like a blouse, because it does tend to get hot in this like forest thing, because it's also like kind of humid in a way. She is crouched over on the ground, holding this uh type of animal that before the fall they wouldn't have seen it, but now it's one of the things walking around here, and it's this kind of like mix between a cat in size and like shape, but it has like kind of almost a scaly pattern over its fur, and it has like little bone spikes protruding from like the spine and the arms, and it has the tendency to walk on both like hind legs. So it's a best for us to describe it as a reptile like cat. Um, she's holding one, and she's wearing like little magnifying glasses. So when someone would look at her, it's like the eyes get very big, and you're like that kind of view. Um, and she's crouched over this one specimen from like many others who walking around there. Um, and I won't describe it in detail, but she is like with a needle and thread, she is like closing down a wound that the animal had previously, and she's kind of muttering to herself of like, I I don't know about this. It's we've never seen this before. And I imagine as she's doing this and as she's muttering silently, um uh I had a name, but yeah. Vanessa is like one of the other council members, so to say, in the Edenites right now. Um she's more like good with the crops, the vegetable type of thing, not even fungal, just purely like crops. Um and I think she would like come to check up because of the like maybe news that like Evangeline has like found something new possibly that she's coming to check up on.
And would you say that Evangeline and Vanessa have a positive relationship, or does it have any tension in it?
I would imagine positive, because being a council member and being like I would imagine even being a mother herself, she knew what happened to Evangeline, and so that's like kind of a, they never talk about it, but it's a sympathetic thread there.
Okay. So yeah, Vanessa kind of comes up. Vanessa is a fat black woman. She has kind of like loose afro hair. And she's wearing like a t-shirt. Like I am imagining this is quite warm. I don't know, probably because you said reptile, and my head immediately went to warm weather. But I'm imagining it as a bright sunny day, and so I think she's got like a t-shirt and shorts on. And she kind of comes over and she's like, okay, so I hear apparently we've got some exciting or interesting news. Tell me more.
It's not it's not even necessarily exciting. I would you know she looks up and she like lifts the glasses. Like, look at this. We're I can close the wound just fine, but I took this. I hope you have already eaten or are not planning to eat, but I took this out of it. And she like raises the without waiting for an answer. She raises like a pair of tweezers with like a like wormy like stringy thing on it. Like it doesn't look healthy. And she's like, I took this out of here. Hold it. And she
Oh,
like
yeah,
uh
no, I will. Like, I think like Vanessa takes it because I think fundamentally, like, whilst Vanessa might not be as good at this stuff as you are, she is like an Edenite, and she has this kind of natural curiosity. I think that like from what you know of her, she comes from like a farming background rather than like an academic one. And so she takes it and kind of holds it up and is like, what do we think? It's some kind of tapeworm? Do we need to be worried about the rest?
I I mean it's too early to say. I don't know, but I think for now we close the wound and we see how this one recuperates. And yeah, worst case scenario, they will have to check them all, I guess, but it would be a waste. But yeah, it's not something at least for me, it's not something I've seen before. Maybe it's documented somewhere. It doesn't it doesn't look like it belonged there. It was a struggle to get it out.
No, and if we're talking about documentation, then it's time to contact our friends, the librarians. We actually had a missive come in from them not long ago. They've had some kind of memory issue. The council wants to discuss it. They're requesting, well, someone within their faction has requested that we subtly send someone from ours to go check on it, but we really need to make that decision as a group. But could be a favor for a favor. We send someone to see if we can help with their memory issues. They have someone check their archive to see if they've got documentation of this. I would say, like, from an agricultural perspective, we should check the whole herd if we have any suspicion of parasites. Otherwise, it's only going to spread further.
I mean, yeah, the we could send a favor for a favor, I'm sure, but like, it's whenever we see these things, and it's something I've never seen before, and I tend to go out a lot as well, and I tend to know what's going on. I mean, sure, the librarians could have something documented about this, but this could be something brand new. I mean, they I'm not doubting their knowledge, but there's so many things that happened here that are new here that surely we might be the first ones to notice. I mean, the look, and she puts the animal that she was like holding down on the ground, and it just like starts walking around again, perfectly fine. And she's like, there was nothing wrong about it. Like it was walking around perfectly fine. No one would have probably even thought to check it. But yet again, there was this inside of it. We can ask them if they know anything, but I would also much rather prefer that we have a few of our experts look into it and we check all of the others and see what we can learn from this parasite nondescript item as of
I
so
mean,
far.
I if there's one thing we've learned from Amnesia, it's that parasitism in this new version of the world isn't exclusively bad. Like,
Yeah.
it seems more like perhaps whatever has happened in the life after is about symbiosis. Another option is that we don't ask the librarians; we just find the knowledge. I mean, we could send someone in subtly. We could just check the archives ourselves. It might be worth knowing if there's anything related, if nothing else, because if this is something new, maybe it's emerged from something before and it would help us to understand how the life form has evolved. But we don't have to tell them that we're asking them. We could just, you know, go in the back door. It's a library. How hard can it be to break into? It's a famously invisible library. But,
All I can say is I agree that there are some things that we need to be safe about. And, we've all noticed so far that not everyone shares our ideals.
yeah.
If this is something that we deem beneficial, it might be useful for us to know it first ourselves before anyone else knows that we have our hands on it. Because then people might be asking questions again about certain parasites and there have been multiple Edenites that have been confronted with the fact of like, are they themselves still human or are they taken over by something else? I honestly, we could miss that shit.
Yeah, no, agreed. Songbirds as well. I mean, it could be interesting to know whether it's evolved into marine life. I agree with you that we shouldn't jump the gun, but as we research it, it could be interesting to, I mean, I would love to know whether this is exclusively landborn.
No, that's a good idea, actually. We can maybe see if we can find one of the songbirds because that's the first point of action. Actually, finding one of them, but maybe we can have them like if we could study some more of the underwater species. I mean, we might as well check them out and see if they also have something inside. I'm sure no one there has checked, like, fought to check up on them either. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, that feels like a good course of action. We'll need to present it to the council, but I like this idea. And it's hard to find a songbird by yourself, but you know what they say, if you want to find a songbird, call your local Aryan. There's a group that have been desperate to I think show us photographs, sell us photographs, take photographs of us. Their sales pitch is not amazingly clear, but there's a group that has been very interested in trading with us for some time.
Hmm. I mean, I'm sure if they're interesting enough, the council would like decide on that. I personally don't really care about a photograph or whatever, but hey, everyone needs something in the life after the life, huh?
Everyone needs a hobby.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, that's it. All right. Well, that's it. We can present this to the council. We humor the Orion. They give us contact with the songbirds. We reach out to the songbirds. We see if we can do some investigation of the marine life. We can be careful about how much information we share or don't share, and we don't need to rush into this. I mean, if there's one thing that all of us have now, it's time. We can take some time to really understand this better, decide what we feel about it, and how we want to handle it, and how we want to handle release of information with the other factions, since, as you've pointed out, we've been burned in the past.
Hmm. Let's keep let's keep the others of the species separated for now. We wouldn't want whatever it is carrying over to others. Even if it might be beneficial, we still have to establish that. For now, it's an unknown. We have to deal with it as that.
Yep. It's what is it y'all always say? Known unknowns, unknown unknowns, something something. But yeah, we should
Yeah, for now,
definitely.
it's an unknown known, but we'll figure out if it stays that way. She'll like look around because I assume that there are people who actually tend to the animals themselves. And she will turn to face like talk to that person to ask them to actually like keep these like quarantined, as in like they can't have any interaction with any of the other species, but they're like perfectly fine. No further actions need to be taken at the moment.
I think, like, I mean, you said that Vanessa is a mother. I kind of like the idea that it's her a daughter who's like helping out take care of the animals. So like this kind of young woman like nods and kind of moves to act, and Vanessa turns and kind of gestures you in the direction of the council clearing. Um you can already see a few council members kind of heading in that direction. There's a few things that have come up recently that really need to be discussed, and rumor is that you've got something to add as well.
Yeah, perfect. I think they'll both head in that direction to discuss multiple things and a possible further course of action.
Okay. And as we see Evangeline's like back, this kind of like middle-aged woman walking alongside her friend and peer Vanessa in this kind of like leafy, grassy oasis in the middle of the desert. We see the kind of like purple haze of the woman that was not once known as Amnita, like sitting like a statue, kind of like exhaling purple mist into the air. Beautiful. Thank you, Syrinx. Next up, Megan, Moz. Please, could you introduce us to Marina or Echo?
Sure. Echo is very tall, muscular, a little from years and years of swimming and living in the uh, ocean for more time than on land. Their body is also very lithe, very like flexible. They have this what is uh it looks like a diving suit with fins on each side and like a warm coating like seal's fur where it kind of soaks up water, but is very buoyant, like very keeps traps heat, and then has like a light all around like an anglerfish, with like fins that attach together to be like a tail, but whenever they're on the shore that can separate apart into shoes, and they can step onto land. They have like black hair that's very cut short and like an undercut that goes into the back with like the nautilus tide collar like kind of like design, and they have like a scar on the front of their face. Their skin is tan, slightly dark in some in like areas where the sun would catch them a little bit more, but they do have like bluish grayish discoloration on their skin from being in the water like most of their life.
Hmm. Cool. So where are they? What are they doing? And who are they with? And describe the relationship that they have with the person they're with.
Anyway, um so there are like two major cities, or like when I say cities, they're not like huge, but they're settlements. But the smaller one, Nautilus, that's nearby, sends out these small expeditions for resources. They don't have scouts, they don't have land, and they don't have transport, so they have to kind of maneuver this together. And so a group of tide callers who go up out into the land to get resources will be filled with like specialists and people who are in the ocean a lot more. Will have like one or two steam hearts with them to kind of be the like the force and or just protection if they need it, if they especially if they're in that area where Nautilus is. And Echo wouldn't be leading the charge because they're kind of working together within their own faction with like the steam hearts, but they're like two kind of groups kind of like working together. So they're kind of at the edge of like on a beach. And uh at least with the songbirds at this time, they have families and they have children. They have youth called nestlings, who kind of are become apprentices, and they kind of join in on these adventures or these expeditions to kind of learn the way. Um, and they would anyone who was like floating, or like during the time of the fall, anyone who was decided the sea was the best way to kind of escape, they would kind of be like brought into the faction, or like if they were like on a boat or something like that. So a lot of children aren't are adopted or brought together and like raised together in like the faction. So they're with like a couple of steam hearts, but the person that they're with right now is oh, I had a name for them, naiad,
Mm.
for like a sea dryad.
Yeah,
Um,
cool.
and they're a young nestling, a youth who's like joining on to either learn the ways of the tide callers or like just understand the world. Like pretty much it might be their second or third time leaving the ocean to like step on water, actually like dry land.
Okay, and does this person have a positive, or like what's the nature of their relationship with Echo?
Echo is like a sentinel for like really like commanding force, but with them they have those like gentle eyes, more like an educator, a really great teacher, like that you have a good relationship with, and someone that what you have the apprentice, what's the opposite of apprentice?
The master, apprentice and a master,
Yeah, yeah,
like a master of the craft. Um,
yes.
uh, cool. Okay. So in that case, so you said you're on this beach on an expedition. This is maybe the third time that Naiad has left the ocean. I'm gonna say, if it's all right with you, Megan, that it is late evening. Is that all right? Cool. Okay. Naiad is like standing near you in that way that kind of like young adults do, where like all of their limbs are kind of pressed quite tightly together, and they're kind of like moving close to you because they clearly have a question they want to ask, but they keep glancing at you like trying to assess whether you're like busy right now, or is this a good time to ask a question. They really want to ask a question right now, but they don't want to disrespect you. So there's just this just kind of like this fidgetiness of them standing near you.
Echo's kind of looking just internally, like looking out just to see any kind of like other people other than songbirds, and even looking out to the water to see if there's like any group of floating ships, and like would kind of put like automatically like an arm out to like kind of hide Naiad and themselves behind like a rock or something, and just like looking, and with that like um, motion, maybe kind of sense that like fidgetiness, and just was like, "Are you all right?"
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's really dry up here, but apart from that, yeah. Um, I was just, I was just wondering.
Take
Um,
longer breaths, longer breaths. The air here is hard on us. Longer breaths, just like how we do when we're underwater. Yes,
it
good, good,
does,
good, good.
and
It
also
is.
it
It's going
smells
to
like
be harder.
poo.
They're going to kind of look around and be like, "Are there animals who pooed here lately?" Possibly, possibly. That makes sense. That makes sense around here.
It
Um,
is it's definitely some new near here because it's a watering hole, right? Like you know, you
mhm.
fundamentally like there are a few animals that will like come near here, so they just kind of like they wrinkle their nose. But then they say, I was just wondering, are those organic or mechanical? And they point at the light of like fireflies, which are kind of like dancing around the shore and through the night. Like I can't tell, I can't see any wires attached to them, but they seem really small if they have battery packs.
These are just like the phytoplankton. Just look, take your hand here. Remember how I showed you before? You take your hand and just swat at them a little bit, and then you can see if they're wires. But it's not. It's just like the bioluminescent like algae we've seen.
But I thought they didn't have anything like that up here.
There's a lot up here that there is and there isn't. But where we're from, this is new. Just new. Not that they didn't have it, just new to us.
Okay.
She's gonna kind of nervously kind of gibbering them from like rock to rock, kind of like looking from place to place, and kind of shake out this like and then even like like their foot might step in like a little tide pool and be like, oh, like a little nervousness, and try to hide it from Naiad as much as possible, like as if they're the adult, and they're just
So
like,
give me a roll. Give me 2d6 plus your sway for Echo.
I have my sway, I promise. It's
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 okay.
an 8.
Okay, that's an 8. That's a mixed success. So I think so there's normally like success at a cost. Oh, I know what it is. Um, so I think Moz, that Echo actually does like successfully, you know, convey confidence and calm to Naiad, and kind of erase that b- bordering nervousness. Um, just in time for them to spot something on the shore. Um, this is a threat. It is not another person. It is not a machine. It is a crocodile. Um, Now, or an alligator, I guess, if we're talking US. Now, before the end of the world, like alligators already got pretty big, like 3 to 4 meters. But this one is 8 meters long. Like it covers up pretty much one side of the shore. It is as tall as a wolf, and it has this kind of like almost looks like tattoos or spirals of like bioluminescence like happening between its scales that actually make it look more like the kind of like strange plants and algae that you get along shorelines right now. Now, Echo knows enough about these creatures that they're not something I think that the songbirds have necessarily befriended yet because they mostly live on land and in the shallow water. But Echo will have encountered these in shore parties before. This is part of their territory. And Echo knows that this is breeding season, that this is probably a female, and that if you are anywhere near her nest, then you need to go away from her nest very, very, very fast and hope that she does not see you. Um, and as all of these thoughts kind of cross your mind, you look over Naiad's shoulder and you see a like small clutch of kind of very light blue eggs. It like kind of in a recess in the dirt that's being carefully dug.
I had
Huh?
one step backwards, very slowly now.
Okay.
Very, very slowly.
Is this a training
You know
exercise?
how. Sure, training. You know how the mothers, the parents, the guardians take care of the nestlings?
Uh-huh.
Well, we have one who. Well, we're near another's nestling. Do you see that over there?
What
Back up
the
very slowly. And then they're gonna like try to cover their mouth. Shh. Quietly, quietly. I'm gonna let you see them for one moment. And you cannot utter a word, okay? But you have to see what they look like so you know what we're dealing with. And they kind of gonna lift them up just a bit to see the mother. Hey, can you sit on my shoulder? Or do you want to run yourself? We are in
No.
water. We can make a little bit of sound and they will hear thrashing.
I feel I don't think I can stand up right now.
Okay. And then they're gonna kind of haul Naiad up and hoist them onto their shoulder and kind of have them like move their leg around so they can like pretty much be on their head, and then kind of slowly kind of dive, put their feet into the sand and kind of like instead of splashing in the water, kind of sink lower into the water without making a lot of sound.
I want you to roll me steel, please. So 2d6 plus your steel stat.
It's a 9.
Okay, that's another mixed success. So it's a success with a cost. So here's what I'm going to say. You will successfully get Naiad out of danger. However, to do that, you will have to either redirect the alligator's attention to someone else in your team, or you will have to take its attention yourself.
um what is it, having the steam hearts nearby, that
Yeah,
would be like what they would kind of direct it to because they are the kind of like enforced part of the group. So they I thought like the songbirds have bioluminescent like algae and things like that where they send hand signals out into the water and glowing rapid light that they would send out any packets of like, I'm I imagine like what are those things like glow sticks where you kind of like
yeah, yeah.
have, but they're made of like algae and natural like fibers or something like that. And she'll like crush one and start like um, spreading it around themselves, and it'll be like a color that that like group would know to be like danger.
Cool. Okay. Um, you successfully get Naiad out of danger, and as you do, there is this sudden like explosion of movement as the mother alligator she goes from kind of lying still on the shore to like sensing movement near her nest, and she just like sprints into the water. And there is this like, you, even though you're like maybe 10, 11 meters away from her at the moment, you feel the force of her body in the water like waving against your legs, like you feel the undercurrent of like the movement of her. And you like, it's getting late, it's dark, the water is inky dark, but your signals go through, the steam hearts rush in, and as you and Naiad get to safety with the other tide callers, and the steam hearts kind of do what the steam hearts do, you just hear this like clash, as one of those kind of big like, it's sort of pseudo mech diving suits like meets with the mother and kind of like pushes her back. um it is a fast and violent fight, um and the result of it is that one of the steam hearts loses the lower half of their right leg. But other than that, everyone survives. Um, and Naiad, afterwards, I think it's really, they have very mixed feelings about the surface from this trip. Like, there's obviously what you said to them, I think, like, really landed with them, like, about this idea that there is more up there. But they also feel kind of reinforced in the kind of schoolyard rumors of like, but there's so much to be scared of up there. And isn't it just safer to hide down here?
That like because these expeditions they don't have scouts that regularly go out, they're kind of like there until they can go back. Echo would kind of hold Naiad's hand a little tighter and kind of pull them to a tide pool and um, wipe away like any stuff from their eyebrows and kind of like um, just give a little soft rub of their forehead and look. I know you are worried. I was worried too when I first returned. But that is not something that you should think of too much. Up here is just how we work down there. Everything that we do, the creatures that we live with down there act in the same manner. They protect their young, they protect their way of life, they protect what they think is right for themselves. That is what the songbirds have believed. And they're going to kind of take their hand and kind of like dunk it into the tide pool and kind of push the water a little bit higher. And then kind of point to like how some of the fish kind of escape out of the tide pool and some of them don't. And they say they're going to just be like, Naiad, the world works in a, a network of economies, needs and wants. And sometimes those needs come out very violently and only in the want of themselves. All these fish here, they have to go out back in the ocean, but they cannot unless the tide returns. And when the tide does, they push and pull at the edges of this little world that they're in to return to what they know, to return to what they need to do for their life to sustain. But that's just an economy. That mother needed to protect them, their their nest, and the steam hearts needed to protect us. I am still scared of many things above land, above our home. But I think I believe in something a little more. Would you like to know what that is?
Yeah.
She's gonna like take his hands and kind of like lift them out of the pool so that the pool kind of exists without like the water anymore and the kind of fish are still trapped. Humanity wasn't made for the service of economies. Economies were made to serve us. We are made, I think, and they're kind of like imagining meeting the Orion and like talking to people and like maybe the secrets that they have that they only know and they're not really sharing, but they I feel like we are made to serve each other, not just ourselves. I don't think we will survive while others drown. We will do what is right for that mother, and I will return here and study on this animal for their nest and see if they can survive without them. And we will also take care of our fallen steam heart, make sure that they are all right and doing well. I think that that would be best, at least. This place shouldn't be a place of fear for us. It should be something we learn how to walk on, how to live in.
Yeah. Like, um, you know, um, last time, Dylan came here with Ryan with the trade delegation.
They did, yes.
Yeah, and he gave me this, and I kind of want to go there one day. And it's a photo of like essentially Niagara Falls, like this massive, beautiful waterfall. And they kind of look at you over it and they say, "He seems nice."
Seems like a marvel. Oh, did they? And they kind of like look at it, inspect it to be like, because it's not in that watery blue tint as they see probably everything in their lives. And they're just like, this is beautiful. Yes. And if I'm lucky, I wish I'm there. I am there when you go there as well. I would love to see it myself.
And I think on that, we're gonna kind of close out on meeting Echo for now. Sadly, we are 5 minutes away from the end of our hour, and we haven't even met Dylan. We've just like
I can go
really
so
spoken
fast.
about the Orion.
I can go so fast. Today
Okay,
is
cool.
not a good day for the Orion.
All right, cool. Then in
yeah,
that
I can
case,
do it.
like we might run 10 minutes over. And what I'm going to say is, because I've got an idea for you as well, Casey, that I think I'd love to like start introducing Dylan now, but then I'd also like him to introduce the start of our next session, and we'll kind of like be in his POV as we bring everyone together. But I really want to meet him now too. And then
That
for people
is
watching and for our players and for our lovely producer, all of whom I'm sure have plans and things to do and places to be, will run like about 5 to 10 minutes over, just so that we can like meet Dylan, say our goodbyes, tell you what's happening on Girls Run These Worlds, and wrap up. So moving to Dylan, where is Dylan? What does he look like? Who is he with? What is the nature of his relationship with that person?
Yep. So I think we come into a place where it's raining and the rain is like dancing a lazy path beneath canopies of oak trees and this nearby like overspilling river, and headed like towards the river drawn by a moose with clumps of algae and moss over its fur and antlers. We have a caravan, which is three pieces wood lashed together with this like polyester rope. Most of the structures are made out of the remnants of wooden sailboats. It has retractable wheels and furled sails, and there are colorful fabrics and clotheslines hanging off of its sides. Old rigging from the ship has been affixed and reaffixed to its sides, and the wheels are digging these deep grooves in the muddy riverside as the moose is dragging it forward. And I think you can hear like a faint sound of a gently plucked mandolin coming from like the second and smallest vehicle, carrying in the wind. And hanging off the side of the rearmost vehicle, tucked under like an outcropping to steer clear of the rainfall, is a man holding a map, marking and remarking an area with like a very small stub of a pencil. He's white. He's a transgender man, mid-20s. He has wavy shoulder length hair. It's light brown, but if it hit the light hits it correctly, it almost looks gold. He's got these steely gray eyes, very athletic build, He's a little bit wet from being out sort of near the rain all day, but he has a neatly tended button down, necklaces and jewelry, specifically on the left side. And there's a deep scar right on his forehead and another one on his neck. Um, he's got a big sun bleached backpack, and generally his things are like weathered but well kept. And I think at this point the Aryan have little signaling whistles for each other. Everyone has their own little signature whistle, and so I think he'll play a little whistle on it and yell out to the driver, "Cars, let's keep tracking forward, fall upstream, hold pace. Crossings in a few miles, we'll stow Rios at the shoreline." And then turn and yell to mid-compartment, like knock on the wood. "Sounded good, Jasp." And as he like walks alongside of the caravan, kind of like carefully treading on the side of it as it's moving, I think they have like a deck of cards that they use to track the weeks, because 52 is going to flip it to the next one. And is then going to like plant his hand on the side of the caravan and hop in through the window. And inside, there's lots of papers and things in this room. There's old university records, there's cyanotypes, there's scrolls and maps, and as well as the piece that they'd found in the Forgotten Heart. And sitting in here is, I think, Dylan's closest friend and confidant, the kind of the two leaders of the group, where it's like we're both very calm and in control, and when we get next to each other, we are the confidants, we are the oh my god, what is happening, like I think they've known each other since they were kids, and I think her name is Davika. She's the wayfinder in charge of most of the navigation. He calls her V, and hops in and goes, "Good news. Updated the map. Bad news. I don't think you should ever put me in charge of it again, because this mountain is on the other side of the river." And
I think that's Davika laughing. Like I think there's this real moment that she enjoys of being able to see this side of Dylan, where like he's like so like comfortable and in charge and projects this aura of confidence, and then just sometimes is a little dumb. And she's like, "Oh, okay, all right.
no, other side of the river.
Yeah. Do we need to
Hey.
get your eyes checked?"
No, my eyes are fine, thank you. Just leveling with you, we're 4.5 hours away from the Edenites, so we all be better getting ready for that. Personally,
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I don't know. I think that your sales pitch has improved substantially since the last time, and I'm sure that this time no one will make any comments about your charisma.
You're going to make a comment about my charisma. I will come back and you will say it, and then we'll pretend this
I
conversation didn't
will
happen.
privately have a lot of thoughts about your charisma, but I promise
They're
not to
not.
tell you
They're
until
never
after we've
that private. They're never that private.
I think it is helpful for you to keep a
You
head
know.
that is in size proportionate to the rest of your body.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I don't know. I had a rumor that the librarians apparently need something from the Edenites. That there is some, acolytes heading out to the Devil's Waste. Oh no, that's not what they call it. Los Diablos.
Interesting. When did you hear that?
Ah, it was the last place we stopped. You know, the watering hole. And apparently
Yeah.
there was a crocodile attack some kind of alligator with the songbirds. Oh well, we don't know. Maybe it was
They
not
okay?
songbirds, but it was people from the water, and then they went back in the water. So either it was songbirds or else
Are
there is
there?
some new monster.
I would. Yeah. Okay. Are they all right? Did you?
Are you thinking about anyone in particular?
No,
Uh-huh.
I'm not.
Sure.
So to recap, we're going to go in after not having talked to the Edenites for 2.5 years, with the hopes of convincing them that they should give us medicine because we can perform a lantern show. That's
Yes.
the best we've come up with.
And I would say actually probably the mushroom lady can do something more interesting than that. I have heard that she can make pictures herself with like the glowing spores, and maybe if we had colors, it
V,
would be better.
V, if you think that it's not interesting enough that they're going to watch it, I really don't think that they'll think it's interesting enough that they need to watch it. You and I, we have to go in believing that this is going to work. We
What
do.
do you
And
have to
not that
remember?
everybody hates us, and not that everybody. I think the librarians might be the only ones that hate us more than the Edenites, truly.
Yes, that is probably true.
I think so. I was trying to plot it on a graph in my head a
Oh
minute
yes, no,
ago,
the
and I
librarians
think
want
it's,
us dead. For
you know,
sure.
like when you look at like exponential grade. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not even on the graph. It's sort of there isn't a piece of paper big enough
No,
for
no,
the
no, no.
level. Yeah.
You strike
No.
it, outlier.
Yeah. Shouldn't have been counted. But no. My friend, here is the thing. The power that we have, the power that we have always had, is not the light shows, though they are very beautiful. The power that we had was that we could bring people together. And unfortunately, your brother has damaged that ability. But it is our responsibility now not to try and impress the Eternites with a light show, which they could probably outdo with some kind of exotic bug. But instead, it is our responsibility to show them that we can travel to places and talk to people that they cannot. You have a very good relationship with oh, there is that person, the Tide Shelter.
Tide call Tide Shouter? Tide Shouter.
Yes,
That
same
they call her.
word, they're
No,
essentially
no,
synonymous.
no. Tide Shouter. Yes, it's the same word.
But there is that
Yes.
person who is very taken with you, it seems.
I am grateful that we have at least one group of people decidedly less interested in killing us. I think
An
that's for the
infamously
best.
difficult to access group, which
You
makes
know, thank you.
our
Yes, that's
relationship with them very valuable to, for
harder to
example,
get.
fellow
Yeah.
scientists.
Yes. 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 No, you're right. We're not completely fucked. Yes. We have more to offer than a light show and some. I took a photograph. I got this great cyanotype of a fern the other day. Tides are really
You know,
turning
I
in our favor.
honestly think that they would really like that.
I think so too. I think so. We could make some nice decor for their.
Well, yes,
For
but also for the
Jesus
scientific
Christ.
purposes, it's useful, you know?
Yes.
They have the
No.
sketching,
Yes,
but
it's
they could
true.
also have a photograph, you know?
Yes.
I think
Okay.
you just have to remember that this time you should not try to charm them.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll skip that. I will
I don't
just
think
go
they play
straight
very
to.
well to charm.
Probably not. No.
No.
Okay.
They've put too many fungus in their brains. And not even in the fun way.
Yeah. Okay. Couple hours left then. We'll figure it out by then. And if all else fails, I have half a bottle of whiskey in the hold. We can drink it when I get back.
Yes. Will that be before or after the imaginary mountain?
Thanks, Tavika. Enlightening chat. I'm gonna. And I'm gonna swing back out the window.
Amazing. I love them already. Okay, fantastic. I'm gonna say with that we will draw our stream to a close. Next episode, as we have teased a little, we will contrive a way for many of these characters to meet each other in real life, for one reason or another. And we will zoom in to see their various exploits in this age of the world before it ends. Will it end explosively, tragically, perhaps even happily? Who knows? Come back next week to find out. In the meantime, we're gonna say goodbye and let you know where you can find us for now. Starting with Moz, where can we find you? What you working on?
Oh, hi, I'm Moz. You can find me at It's Mozzarella or Mozzarella on Twitch with 3 L's. I couldn't get the one with the 2. Anyway, or Starcrawl RPG where we're doing Kids on Brooms. If you're part of the community at Mozzarella, we world build and build stuff that our players end up using or are thrown with, like scenarios or stuff like that, or like world building things that like a community member said that they do. letters by folded origami cranes, stuff like that, and that happens in the world. So yeah, you can find me there.
That's so cool. Also, I feel like this whole episode has been a great advert for your world building skills, and I want to see more. Okay, next up, Aaliyah.
I'm Aaliyah. I go by Aaliyah the Sorceress. You can find me. Usually, I'm active on Twitter, although I'm trying to move that over to Blue Sky. Always writing something new. I think I will follow me on Twitter. I will announce my official playing schedule when it's official, and I don't have to like guess at things. But yeah, Leah the Sorceress. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Next up, Angela.
Hello there, lovelies. My name is Angela Lamos Morbeja. I use she, her pronouns, and I have been playing Emiliana, who is a not so subtle nod to Emiliano Zapata, who is the leader of the Mexican Revolution. So you can find all of my work pretty much over on the Beacons thing that I have linked in the chat. But also, for anyone interested in having a professional game run by me, I have start playing games up for the entirety of June. I have Demigods, Slayers, an ongoing Fabula Ultima campaign, and I believe Monster Hearts 2, which I alluded to a while back, where you get to be in a castle in the woods and debauchery, romance, and supernatural flirting ensue because you all, during the second half, get to access your darkest self at will. Because who doesn't want that kind of thing with a minotaur, a witch, and a ghost all in the same room? That's me. Next.
that was so much, but yeah, okay, cool. I love that as an appetizer. Next up, Casey.
Hey, yeah, my name's Casey. Um, I exist on the internet at the Casey Fleming. I have a link tree that has all of the links to the cool things. But a podcast that I work on with Midnight Ceremonies Media just finished releasing last week. It's a 10 Candles indie TTRPG thing. I did a bunch of sound design work for it and also produced. Super proud of it. That is cool and exists on the internet, and I'm really proud of it. So that's around.
That's so cool. I've always wanted to play 10 Candles. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, later.
Exciting. Okay. Last but certainly not least, Syrinx.
Hi, I'm Syrinx. You can find me as such on Twitter and Instagram. And honestly, the attention shouldn't be on me right now. The attention should be on Dylan, who is giving such hard himbo vibes that I am absolutely here for it. So I'll give my spotlight to Dylan. There you go. Shout out.
I love that we're just like, listen, we love him so much. We're bringing him into the outro. Gorgeous. Okay, Girls Run These Worlds is an amazing channel that centers women, femmes, queer people. It's awesome. I've also just noticed that they're 43 followers away from their next goal. So hey, if you want to help them out, follow their Twitch. You can check out Watch Later Games on YouTube, and you can also currently sign up for casting this weekend for Juneteenth and Pride one shots. Please do like stick a submission in. Like it doesn't matter whether or not you've got actual play experience before. The GRTW team are really open to and welcoming of people new to actual plays. My first actual play was on this channel, and I've done a bunch since with them just because I feel very safe and welcome here, and they make it fun, which is nice. If you would like to check out other streams on the channel, there's a lot of cool stuff happening, including the Alien RPG, which is on Thursdays, as well, I believe, as a Ballad of Conjurers.
Oh, that
And
might be an outdated list that you're looking at.
I'm looking at the one on the Twitch, but apparently it's wrong. No.
No, that might have
Um,
been that might have been on our end. Don't worry about it, Ella. We
well, there's a bunch of other cool stuff. Go to the website, go to their YouTube channel, check it out. And be aware that you can always watch stuff later if you miss it on Twitch. I personally really like rewatching campaigns. For example, I believe Auriga Stars recently finished, which means that it is now possible to binge through, or finish a season. Um, Okay. I'm Ella Watts. My pronouns are she, her. I have been your freewheeling and migraine bearing GM. And you can find me on the internet at GEJ Watts. I have a card. Check out my podcast. It's called Camlan, an audio drama. I make other podcasts. I do stuff. You can see it. I'm very tired. I'm gonna go now. Thank you very much for watching. We hope that you had fun, and we'll see you next week. Bye.